Do you live in the US and want an easy way to eat well and save money this year? Well, our discount might just be the one for you. HelloFresh is the US #1 meal kit service and delivers fast, fresh and affordable food to your door. So why have the cost of takeout or that horrible trip to the grocery store? Just get it delivered to you and have a hassle-free dinner of the highest quality.
So why not check out HelloFresh? Click the link down below for your special discount.
Well, after an Easter Monday full of comebacks and 2-2 draws in the Championship, we are back today for matchday 42 predictions. A big weekend as we edge closer to the finish line and a lot of big games at the top and bottom of the Championship table. Very quickly though, before we go and move on to those fixtures, let's have a quick recap of what happened in Easter Monday's action, because I picked up 8 points and at last I managed to get a perfect score, and not just one, two of them. A 1-0 win for Sunderland away at Cardiff and a 2-2 draw between Bristol City and Middlesbrough picked me up 8 points after perfect outcomes for Luton and Preston's home wins as well. And elsewhere, you guys were pretty similar to me. 8 points for Tony, who got exactly the same score, and W&G fan just one behind on 7. But the last few weeks, we all seem to be very similar, and the Championship continues to be very unpredictable. With that done though, let's go and move on to matchday 42. A full weekend of action, a lot of decisive games, and we start with one on TV on Friday night. It is big at the top, it's big for promotion and the playoff race. It is Middlesbrough versus Norwich City. For Borough, disappointment again. We asked the question before the last episode, are they starting to have a little wobble? And with a perfect score prediction, which could have been worse for Borough at one stage, maybe you could argue that they are here. It wasn't the best performance. It was Bristol City who raced into a 2-goal lead, of course, late in the first half and early in the second. But you've got to give credit to Borough. They fought back, they got great chances towards the end and probably had enough to have won it. But a brilliant effort to come back from 2-0 down. But you do wonder if they don't win this game, is the outside chance at second completely gone? Now 8 points behind with 5 games to go. They've got to win to put the pressure on. For Norwich, a disappointing day. After a really good win away at Blackburn, to be frustrated and held at home to Rotherham, something we've seen Rotherham do a number of times to big teams this season. And Norwich, all of the ball, loads of chances, but just couldn't hit the target with them. They had the news last week that Timu Pukki would be leaving, and you know what? The goal threat does seem to be drying up. No one able to take one for them, a 0-0 draw, incredibly frustrating. And if they won that game, even taken one of those chances, they would be in 5th place going into this weekend. So I'm not really sure what to predict for this one. I do feel like Middlesbrough are going to have to turn the corner. They are going to have to try and be a bit more aggressive. But the problem isn't that they've stopped scoring goals. They've scored in every game. They're just conceding now. 8 goals against in the last 3. Huddersfield and Bristol City, not games you would have had them down to concede a lot of goals. So I'm going to go for Middlesbrough to bounce back. I think we're going to get a big performance, but I do think it'll be a quite cagey games. You've got Borough, who are always involved in thrillers. Norwich, who haven't been involved in many great games recently. I'm going to go in between the two for a Middlesbrough 2-1 home win. Let's go and move on to Saturday though. The early kickoff is another big one in that promotion race. And it's a big one down at the bottom as well. It is Sheffield United in second against Cardiff City in 21st. Cardiff 1 point clear of the relegation zone. Sheffield United now 5 points clear of Luton. They capitulated early on against Burnley, didn't they? They were in the ascendancy. They were comfortable for 10 or 15 minutes. And what a mistake to make. Robinson and Fotheringham between them. I don't know what was being thought of there. There probably wasn't much thinking going on. It was a terrible catastrophe. And of course, Fotheringham now with the red card. That's not the bigger issue in the grand scheme of things because Davis is a good keeper. But that defeat against Burnley, it just puts the pressure on. With Luton having won earlier in the day, the gap is only 5 points now. And with Sheffield United playing first this time, they have got to get the result. They'll know what Middlesbrough have done the night before. They could well have pressure from 2 teams. And against Cardiff, who are going to be scrapping for their lives and who are going to be fighting hard defensively, will they be able to break them down? I know that Lamucci's side have been a bit more attacking in recent weeks. 5 games in a row they've conceded a goal though. And I'm not sure whether they're going to come out to play much here. I think they'll see a point as a good result in their run-in. It was a fairly even game against Sunderland. They didn't have a lot of the ball, but they had a couple of glorious chances that they spurned. And if they create those against Sheffield United, they might be able to make it a nervy day. I'm not 100% sure that the Blades win this one, but I'm going to back them to do so. Just because I think Cardiff, they can't be trusted to take chances and they always seem to concede. So I'm going to go for a 2-0 win for the host, but I'm not entirely confident with that one. Well, as we go on to the 3 p.m. kickoffs, a couple of weeks ago, this looked like a relegation 6-pointer. Now it looks like the battle to avoid bottom spot because it's Blackpool versus Wigan Athletic. Both sides well cut adrift now, 7 and 8 points from safety respectively. Blackpool lost 3-1 at Luton to make it 4 in a row with 13 conceded. Wigan lost at home to Swansea in a crucial game. That's 2 defeats in a row for them. And I just feel like it's a bit too far for either side now. Of course, just an hour or two after I recorded the last episode, Mick McCarthy was sacked by Blackpool. Stephen Dobbie in temporary charge. And do you know what? They were really good in the first half at Kenilworth Road. They were resolute. They were a big threat on the counter. It was more similar to the Neil Critchley Blackpool we saw from the season before. But letting in that goal with the last kick of the first half, it was such a hammer blow. And I genuinely believe if they hadn't conceded then and they got to the break at 1-0, the atmosphere was flat, Luton were frustrated, I think they would have got a result. But as it is not to be. Their awful away record continues, but their home record's not much better. Against a Wigan side who were decent away from home early in the season, a side that again under Sean Maloney have been relatively solid, but that Swansea game will be so disappointing to them. Joel Pirro put it away before half-time. Again, there wasn't a huge amount in it, but Swansea clearly had the better chances. And for Wigan, I think unfortunately with that deduction, they are now too far adrift. So I do think Blackpool will get a response here. Stephen Dobbie's team did much better on Monday. So based on that, I'm going to go for them to edge it. But it's hard to be confident either way with these teams. I'm going to go for 2-1 to Blackpool because they don't keep clean sheets. We'll see if I'm right come Saturday afternoon. Let's move on to the second 3 p.m. kickoff. It is Millwall versus Preston. No points separate the two teams. It is 5th v 7th. 2 of the 3 teams sitting on 62 points at the minute. Millwall surprisingly perhaps lost 1-0 at Hull City. They've now gone 4 games without a goal and a win. Traore got the second half goal for Hull. And Millwall, to be fair, had so many chances. I do not know how they didn't get one. They had 22 shots on goal. They had 3 times the shots on target. They had one glorious chance in particular. They fell to defeat. And at this stage of the season, that is all that matters. And you look at the other side of the fence here. Preston, 3 wins in a row. 5 in 6, only Middlesbrough beating them. They are absolutely flying. They are now right in the cusp of the playoff positions. They played really well, and winning it so late on in that 92nd minute will be a massive boost for them too. They dominated the game they deserved to. They probably should have been out of sight in truth. This game is going to be huge because Preston look like they might sneak in. But for me, based on what we saw with Preston early in the year and based on what we've seen with Millwall in the last few weeks, there's only one scoreline I can go for. And it's a big risk, but I can see this being cagey. I'm going to go for 0-0. Well, next up is another big game at both ends of the table and between two sides who battled back from 2-0 down on Monday afternoon. QPR versus Coventry. QPR, I think we all thought the inevitable after 15 minutes against West Brom. They were outplayed, they were outthought. But you know what? They bounced back and they showed resilience. And for the last 60 minutes of that game or 70 minutes, they looked like a Gareth Ainsworth side, which is a massive positive for QPR. Given the fact that other sides like Reading lost in the last minute as well, that Blackpool and Wigan continue to get further away, it is such a big point for them. And you know what? They created a few really good chances as well. So massive fair play to QPR. Has to become a turning of the corner now. We saw after the 1-0 win against Watford, they just collapsed the next game at Blackpool. They've got to avoid that again here. For Coventry, battled back from 2-0 down against Watford, a second half performance to be very proud of. And it just about keeps them in that playoff race. They were the better side in the game. They probably did enough to win it. But you can't give teams a 2-goal head start in a championship. They're still 3 points off the playoffs. It's all to play for the Sky Blues. But what is the score going to be in this one? I'm going to have to go with Coventry. Because when they are ruthless, when they're at their best, they are a better side than QPR. But if QPR show what they did for the last 70 minutes in that last game, they've got every chance of winning matches because they're a good championship team on paper. I'm going to go for Coventry to win by 3-1. But I'd argue this might be one of the hardest to predict this weekend. Well, depending on how the early kickoff goes, this game could be one where Burnley clinch the championship title. They go away to Reading, who are scrapping for their lives at the bottom now. A spirited effort away at Preston after 3-1 draws in a row, but ultimately 0 points, conceding that late goal. It's going to be a big hammer blow for that Reading team. We know they're strong at home. We know they've got a good championship record at their own stadium. But this is Burnley, and Burnley are magnificent. A slow start against Sheffield United and done a massive favour by Wes Foderingham, as we mentioned earlier. But one of those experienced Premier League pros, Goodmanson, able to get at the double to get them the win. And Burnley, they're very close to that title now. It was a dominant performance once they played against 10, of course, but most importantly, they got the 3 points. And although Reading will be direct, they will be physical, I'm not sure they can cope with Burnley's quality on the counter. I think Burnley will press high. I think they'll create chances. And I'm going to go for the same score as the last game. The visitors to win by 3-1. Let's move on to the game I'm going to be at this Saturday, which is Rotherham United versus Luton Town. Rotherham, a brilliant 0-0 draw at Norwich, as we mentioned, frustrated them. And they've done it against top sides so many times on the road. Massive credit to them. They're probably one result away from being safe. From a personal point of view, I obviously hope it doesn't come this weekend. It's very hard to tell with Luton in town. A couple of draws in recent weeks, but lots of wins. 9 unbeaten up to third. And if they do win this, and Sheffield United don't in the early kickoff, you could argue they're one of the favourites for second then. It's a massive, massive season for Luton Town. Rob Edwards continues to do a brilliant job. But I'd argue they got a bit lucky against Blackpool. We were really poor first half. Pelly Ruddock saved us with a lovely finish with the last kick of the half. Then in the second half, it was one-way traffic for the most part. But a bit of a warning sign in that first half. The team were flat, the atmosphere was flat, and it could have easily gone a different way if we'd gone in 1-0 down at half-time. But ultimately, as for the record books, it's a 3-1 win, 5 points off second with 5 to play. Or if Sheffield United drop points, this will be a tasty game. Luton love a 1-0 win on the road, but Rotherham unbeaten in 3. They were outstanding in their last home game against West Brom. I'm going to sit on the fence here. A Championship's favourite scoreline, 1-1, but please, just let me be wrong on this occasion. Well, I'm just going to have to pause here to go back a minute because Reading versus Burnley, which I predicted a minute ago, now Paul Ince has been sacked literally 4 minutes after I recorded that segment. Very strange decision, but Paul Ince is out and I'm adding a goal on for Burnley. 4-1 to the visitors. Right, let's get back to where we were. Next up is Stoke City versus West Bromwich Albion. How frustrating are Stoke City? After some brilliant performances against the top sides in the league, a couple of games they've got to work a bit harder to get themselves up for, and they're awful. Against Bristol City, it was terrible. And in the Birmingham game, I think the term we would use is uninspired. One shot on target. I mean, it was not a game you want to watch as the neutral, is it? A lot of the ball, kept it well, but didn't really create a great deal. And in the end, 0-0, probably a fair result for that game. Stoke City's great run is probably over, and they'll be on the beach now. For West Brom, no win in 4. That positive start under Corberan has dwindled, and I'd argue, albeit with a game in hand, they probably need to get a result this weekend. They're now 5 points off the playoffs. Their goal difference is comparable with a lot of the sides, but from 2-0 up after 15 minutes against QPR, they will be devastated not to win that game. A really disappointing effort against a side low on confidence, and in the end it could have been even worse because QPR had 3 very good chances. Luckily for West Brom, they only took 2 of them. I don't know what to predict for this game again, so I think I'm going to have to sit on the fence with a Championship's favourite scoreline, albeit Monday's fixtures didn't have any, but I'm not going to keep going for 2-2 draws. We'll go in between this time. We'll go for the Championship's favourite scoreline, Stoke are impossible to predict, and West Brom just dwindling at the wrong time of the year. Well, these predictions are going to have to get a bit shorter now because the voice is starting to go again. It is Sunderland versus Birmingham City. Sunderland still got an outside chance at the playoffs after a 1-0 win away at Cardiff. Crucial result that. For Birmingham, nothing to play for now. Got the 50 points, they're 4 unbeaten. John Eustace has done a better job than most expected. And one of the few managers who's going to make it through the season, so fair play to him. A really good effort to draw at home to Stoke, frustrate them. It's not great to watch, and you can't argue that it's not entertaining. But to be fair to him, with the players he's got, with the squad he's got, and with all of the chaos off the pitch all year, he's done a really good job to keep that ship steady. So big credit to Eustace. For Sunderland, after the chaos against Hull City, a calmer 1-0 away from home at Cardiff. They had a lot of the ball, they had a lot of chances, but Cardiff had some great ones, and on another day, they could well have lost that game. For Sunderland, though, this becomes a must-win. They've not got the best home record this season. It has at times been their Achilles heel. And breaking down a Birmingham side that are going to be defensive, deep and resolute, they're not going to get that space to counter in behind. And they've not got their early season scorers of Ellis Sims or Ross Stewart. So I feel like this one could be a frustrating day for Sunderland. I'm not going to go as low scoring as many will expect. But I'm going to go for Birmingham to nick it on the counter. I think Sunderland might get sucked in and frustrated. They're going to have to push late on in the game because they're going to want to get in that playoff mix. And this is a game they probably have to win. And I think Birmingham might take advantage. So as much as it would be nice to see another side in the playoff race making it dramatic, I think Birmingham nicked this by 2-1. Just a little bit of a hunch on the way this game will play out. Next up, another big game at the bottom against a side that have started playing very well with no pressure on them. It is Swansea City versus Huddersfield Town. Neil Warnock so close to getting Huddersfield well away from the danger zone. A 2-2 draw against Blackburn after taking a 2-0 lead. But as he said, a wonderful effort and still 11 points from 15. You cannot complain about that, especially considering they were all against top half side. So you've got to give him credit. You've got to give the team credit. Matty Pearson on a remarkable run of scoring, the former Luton man. And Jack Radoni waited so long to end his goal drought. And then another one comes along straight away. For Swansea, good performance at Wigan. Probably should have won by more. But 3 clean sheets in 4. I almost feel like fainting when I say that with Swansea. An excellent effort. I do think for Huddersfield, they're going to have to be very disciplined without the ball because we know Swansea are going to pass it all day. It's just about which style wins out. Will Swansea get through that Huddersfield defence? Will they make mistakes, which we've seen at times, even under Neil Warnock? Or will they be able to hit them on the counter if Swansea give away possession? For me, this is a tricky one. I think it could be one of the most thrilling games of the weekend just because of the clash of styles, just because Swansea can be free-flowing without much to play for, and Huddersfield have got a scrap for points. And to be fair, they've been involved in 3 thrillers in a row, haven't they? 2-2, 3-2, 4-2. I'm not going to go down with the pattern for 1-2. I'm going to stick with a 2-2 draw. Back-to-back points for Huddersfield Town, and Swansea will keep the unbeaten run going. 2 games to go, and it's another 2 sides that were involved in 2-2 draws on Monday night. It is Watford, who drew away at Coventry, against Bristol City, who held Middlesbrough. A great effort from Borough to go 2-0 up, and in fact, both sides went 2-0 up, didn't they? Bristol City probably not as disappointed to be pegged back because they were playing against a very good team. Harry Cornick got his goal, which was great to see, doing a favour for his old club Luton. And Bristol City, to be fair to them, were pretty strong in the first hour of that game. Faded a little bit later on, but Middlesbrough have got a stronger squad and they've got more to play for. So I don't think we should be that surprised to have seen that. For Watford away at Coventry, do you know what? The first half is the best they've played under Wilder. The second half was the same old Watford, and now in 12th place, 6 points off the playoffs with 5 to go. You'd argue that despite having a fairly good running on paper, they've now got very little chance of making it. The problem here for Watford is that if they don't score early, if they get frustrated, the crowd are going to turn on them because, let's be fair, they've given the crowd a lot to turn on them for because their performances have largely been awful. In the derby, they were pathetic. At home to Huddersfield, they lost all discipline. And at Coventry, they blew a 2-goal lead. It's not a good time to be a Watford player because you're not very far from being on the receiving end. And I completely understand that from a fan point of view. I do think they'll get something from this game because Bristol City have only won 1 of their last 5. I don't think it's going to be a thriller. I know both teams have had lots of goals for and against in recent weeks, but I'm going to stick with my safe one. 1-1 at Vicarage Road. And the final game on TV in the evening, I was going to criticise it, but last time they picked Hull Sky, they got it absolutely right, so I'll reserve judgment. It is Blackburn Rovers versus Hull City. Blackburn scraped a point away at Huddersfield in the 91st minute. They were attacking second half. Of course, they had to from 2 down, but it almost was another bad day at the office. In the end, it stopped the rot of 3 successive defeats in all competitions, and it just about kept them in the playoffs on goal difference. With Millwall playing Preston this weekend, though, it's probably a good chance for them to take advantage. They've got that game in hand from the FA Cup, and they've got an opportunity here at home to a side with nothing to play for to really try and make something happen. But Hull are unbeaten in 4, a great 1-0 win to back up that last-minute equaliser at Sunderland, and it ended up being a very good Easter weekend for Liam Rossinia's team. They go past the 50-point mark as well. They're now comfortably safe, but will they be able to stop Blackburn? I'm looking at this game. The form book would suggest that Hull will get something, but Blackburn have to win. Hold out, they've reached that milestone, that 50-point mark everyone talks about. So do you know what? I'm going to go for a comfortable home win. And I know Blackburn cost me on Monday as well. I'm going to go for 2-0 to the host. I think they'll cement their position in the playoffs this weekend. Blackburn 2, Hull 0 to finish. Let's have a quick recap then of what I've predicted for matchday 42 this Saturday. And my biggest scoreline is the one that I changed midway through the episode after the news that Paul Ince had been sacked. I've also gone for a few Championship's favourite scorelines, a big win for Coventry at QPR, and a thrilling 2-2 draw with Neil Warnock picking up another point in the battle for survival at Huddersfield. Those are my predictions for this weekend though. Do you agree or disagree with them? Am I being too cautious with Luton Town? I'm trying my best not to put any jinx on it. Let me know your predictions down in the comments, and as always, if you beat my score, you will get a shout out in the next recap. We will be back on Sunday evening because of course there's another big midweek to come. If you did enjoy this one though, please do put a thumbs up on it. Subscribe for regular content from the Honest Football Podcast. I'll try and get you a clip from Rotherham Luton on Saturday. It'll depend on my mood at the end of the game. I'll see you next time for more Championship predictions, because this is going to be a photo finish at both ends of the table.